Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatgurum Padapadme Tvayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma surupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So let's go to chapter 2. So Raja Yoga is divided into 8 steps. So he's talking about the yamas and niyamas. The first is yama, non-killing, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-receiving of any gifts. Next is niyama, cleanliness, contentment, austerity, study, and self-surrender to God. Then comes asana, or posture, pranayama, or control of prana, pratyahara, or restraint of the senses from their objects, dharana, or fixing the mind on a spot, dhyana, or meditation, and samadhi, or superconsciousness. Okay. So here what Swamiji is talking about, these 8 ethical disciplines. Now, Ramakrishna said that there's an interesting point to note about these. He once went to Balaram Bose's father, and Balaram Bose's father is an Orthodox Vaishnava. He's always doing japa dhyana, always visiting places of tirtha, going on places of pilgrimage. But Ramakrishna, when he saw him, he made the comment, in Bangla I'll say it in English, Tader jonno ekti bochor jano 18 mash. So why is it that these types of people, that 12, it seems like their sadhana becomes like 18 months, what should take 12 months. So that shows the importance of these ethical disciplines, that it's like trying to cross the ocean of samsara in a small boat, and the boat has holes in it. And the main difficulty that we face is that we're unaware of the holes, so we can't correct them. We'll talk about this later on. Today we're going to focus on asana. So there's also 8 steps in Ashtanga Yoga. Yama and Niyama are the first 2 steps. After that is asana, posture. Then this pratyahara, restraining the senses from the sense objects. Then dharana, holding, dhyana, meditation, and samadhi. These are the 8-fold steps. So we're going to do a deeper dive into step number 3 today. So again, let's start off with the common misconceptions that many of us face. So I've met some monks, they said, don't exercise too much. That will lead to body consciousness. They'll sometimes say like walking is enough. 10 minutes is enough walking, or 10 Surya Namaskars. Now, if we connect this with asana, posture, we have to think, what is the link between, what do they mean by asana? What do they mean by posture? Does asana only apply to sitting, or does it also apply to standing? For that, who are our ideals regarding the concept of physical health? Okay, you see the 2 pictures? You can see Swami Vivekananda and Holy Mother. So what do you see about their posture? What do you notice? Let me show you another picture. This is Holy Mother in different stages. This picture to the left is the common picture taken in 1898. The middle picture is taken in 1905, and the picture to the right is taken in 1909. What do you notice about that? Her posture. Spine is straight. Now standing. What do we see here? Look at Ramakrishna in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Holy Mother is standing. This is Swamiji during his time of sadhana. Sometimes we look at Swamiji at the end, but no, we want to look at Swami Vivekananda when he was doing his sadhana, especially between 1886 and 1892, before he went to Chicago. What do you notice about their standing posture? What was that? Straight, yes. And that's quite interesting. That's Ramakrishna in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. You're not supposed to have consciousness of the body at that time, and yet he's so straight. So I want to now go to what Swami Vivekananda talks about when he's talking about āsana. Swamiji says the next step is āsana, posture. A series of exercises, physical and mental, is to be gone through every day until certain higher states are reached. Therefore, it is quite necessary that we should find a posture in which we can remain long. That posture which is the easiest for one should be the one chosen. So when you say this easiest, that almost seems that, okay, you can even sleep if that's the easiest, or you can slouch. But is that what Swamiji means? Swamiji continues, for thinking, a certain posture may be very necessary for one man, while to another it may be very difficult. Now I want to go down a little bit. I'll continue. We will find later on that during the study of these psychological matters, a good deal of activity goes on in the body. Nerve currents will have to be displaced and given a new channel. So Swamiji is saying this at that time. At that time, these different, I think it's the ECG, that instrument that measures brain waves, was not discovered yet. The law of neuroplasticity was not discovered yet. Science was not up to date. So where did Swamiji get these ideas? Nerve currents will have to be displaced and given a new channel. This is coming from posture. New sorts of vibration will begin. The whole constitution will be remodeled, as it were. But the main part of the activity will lie along the spinal column, so that the one thing necessary for the posture is to hold the spinal column free, sitting erect, holding the three parts, the chest, neck, and head, in a straight line. Let the whole weight of the body be supported by the ribs, and then you have an easy, natural posture with the spine straight. Swamiji further says, you will see easily that you cannot think very high thoughts with the chest in. My Guru Swami Swahananji, a disciple of Swami Vivekananda, he had straight posture for his entire life. He used to say, in his very cute way, a human being cannot think high thoughts if their back is bent. This is what Swamiji is saying. So the next question is this. Is there empirical evidence to support this? Is there empirical evidence to support the claim that posture is a necessary element for higher thinking? So I'd like to read to you some recent studies that were done. One is a study in health psychology in New Zealand in 2014. It says that participants were strapped into upright or slumped positions. Those with upright posture reported significantly greater enthusiasm, excitement, self-esteem, and less social fear, while slumped participants felt fearful, passive, sluggish, and more negative. Good posture was also associated with stronger physiological responses. Okay, so I just read to you. The question then may come. I was reading the study to my father. So he's a scientist. So he raised the question, how do you know that it's not a depressed person will be more likely to have a slouched posture, while a optimistic person will be more likely to have a straight posture? So what causes what? It's like the chicken and the egg. Which came first? In other words, are interventions possible? So to that, it says a follow-up with mildly depressed individuals found that adopting upright sitting reduced fatigue and increased enthusiasm, decreased self-focus, and resulted in more speech and less I-centered language. In the Gita we say aham mama. A shift consistent with easing depressive symptoms. This is psychology today. So this is regarding how good posture, what we say āsana, straight posture, line between the head, neck, and spine, increases confidence and mood enhancement. It also increases cognitive ability and mental clarity. Research led by Dr. Eric Pepper, San Francisco State University, found that slouched posture reduces alertness, slows positive memory recall, and impairs performance on tasks like mathematics, while upright posture improves cognitive speed, focus, and accuracy. How is this being measured? EEG measurements even showed increased brain effort when slouching to evoke positive memories. That's interesting. You know, one of the main symptoms of depression is that the inability to retrieve positive memories, successes. The mind already has a nature, an ubiquitous element to, like Holy Mother said, to flow down like water. So it already has what's called a cognitive negative bias. But this is even more enhanced with bad posture, according to these studies. So we've talked about thinking and feeling. Another study showed empathy, social perception. It also gets reduced with bad posture when slouching. Here it is. In an older study, therapist postural congruence significantly enhanced client perception of the therapist's empathy, warmth, and competence. So there's a saying, even if you don't know what you're doing for a therapist, if you keep straight, that exudes confidence. And that gets worked into muscle memory, which can activate the good samskaras, which bring about competence. Most recently, regarding slumped posture and depression risk, in 2020, there was a systematic review on depression and posture that found that slouched posture correlates with increased depressive and anxiety symptoms, lower self-esteem, and heightened stress responses. And the broader consensus is that this reinforces that habitual slouching is associated with fatigue, negativity, reduced focus, and in prolonged cases may exacerbate feelings linked to depression and low emotional resilience. So after hearing this, we should all automatically try to sit up straight. These are empirical psychological studies and cognitive studies, neuroscience. What about physiological studies? Doctors found that sitting straight leads to more lung expansion. Upright posture allows the diaphragm to move freely, enabling full lung expansion. What happens then? More oxygen enters into the body and circulates through all parts of the body, the brain to everything else. What happens with slouched posture? It compresses the lungs and diaphragm, reducing vital capacity and tidal volume. Meaning if you're slouched, you cannot take in so much oxygen. Another thing it does, studies have found that it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. What does this do? In a stressful situation where normally the response would be fight or flight, it helps us to relax and respond rather than react. Let's go back to the studies of what Swami Vivekananda is saying. I'm going back to where he says, nerve currents will have to be displaced and given a new channel. New sorts of vibrations will begin. The whole constitution will be remodeled, as it were. So I did a study. What was the state of neuroscience and science in the time of 1894? Swamiji gave these talks beginning in 1894, January. How did he know these things? So I was wondering, it said that in 1873, one scientist first developed the silver staining method for visualizing neurons. And in 1888 and 1891, one Santiago Ramon, he proposed the neuron doctrine, which argues that the nervous system is made up of discrete individual cells, neurons, rather than a continuous network. The term synapse, what we talk about, that they say there's about 68 billion neurons in the brain, and they are always communicating with each other, wiring and firing with each other, and in between there's a gap called synapse, and in that synapse, chemicals get released. So that idea, a synapse, was only discovered in 1897, after Raja Yoga. Now, in 1924, Hans Berger invented the EEG, the electroencephalogram, which recorded human brain waves for the first time. 1929, he published these findings. 1930s to 40s, the theta and delta brain waves were discovered in the brain for the first time. 1960s to 70s, the gamma waves were discovered. They call those the feel-good waves, the waves of happiness, the waves that meditators exhibit. The idea of neuroplasticity was not talked about until the mid-20th century. What is neuroplasticity? That the brain the brain is not a fixed element. During Swami Vivekananda's time, Western science still believed that the brain was hardwired. what you did in the beginning years, that would remain like cement for the rest of your life. But now what new studies show, per the laws of neuroplasticity, is that the brain that wires together, fires together, and it is very malleable. And that you can even at an advanced age, for that reason, learn a new language, that you're not limited. So that's quite interesting. If you go back to what Swamiji says, new sorts of vibrations will begin. The whole constitution will be remodeled. This was something that you can ask, how did Swami Vivekananda know this at that time? Except for intuitive insight. So, that's what Swami Vivekananda talked about regarding cultivating new waves, new channels, and keeping the posture straight. Let's continue now with Raja Yoga. This portion of the yoga is little similar to the Hatha Yoga, which deals entirely with the physical body, its aim being to make the physical body very strong. We have nothing to do with it here because its practices are very difficult and cannot be learned in a day, and after all, do not lead to much spiritual growth. So Swamiji is talking this Hatha Yoga. It's okay if you know it, but I think what he was saying is that the majority of our mind should be given towards our spiritual practice, that this body is an instrument, but not the goal, to keep the body healthy. Let's go to the bottom of page 35. Swamiji continues, the result of this branch of yoga is to make men live long. Health is the chief idea, the one goal of the Hatha Yogi. He is determined not to fall sick, and he never does. He lives long. 100 years is nothing to him. He is quite young and fresh when he is 150, without one hair turned gray. I did some research. I wonder if Swamiji, did he meet somebody like that? Because the only person I could see during Swami Vivekananda's time who had lived for a long time was this Trilinga Swami, who lived in Kashi. He lived for almost 300 years. Ramakrishna met him. They called him the living Vishwanath in Kashi. But he didn't look like he was 300 years old, but he had gray hair. Swamiji continues, but that is all. A banyan tree lives sometimes 5,000 years, but it is a banyan tree and nothing more. So if a man lives long, he is only a healthy animal. So this is where Swami Vivekananda comes back to the point. So what's the point of the body? If we keep it healthy, so what? This is what he's saying here. And we all agree with him that the main idea in spiritual life is to realize God. But does that mean that we throw out what he's been talking about? In other words, I would push back on that idea. If one were to practice any of the yogas, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, as we just mentioned, straight posture, good posture, upright standing and sitting, what does that do? It says that leads to increased empathy, which is necessary for bhakti, cultivating the capacity to feel. Increased thinking, better thinking, which is necessary for jnana, the ability to discriminate and receive information. And also Raja Yoga, the ability to concentrate, the willing power, Ichha Shakti, as we say, all by a good posture. Let's continue. Let's go down to the first paragraph of page 36. After one has learned to have a firm, erect seat, one has to perform, according to certain schools, a practice called the purifying of the nerves. This part has been rejected by some as not belonging to Raja Yoga, but as so great an authority as the commentator Shankaracharya advises it, I think it should be mentioned. So he mentions certain practices. The mind whose dross has been cleared away by pranayama becomes fixed in Brahman. Therefore, pranayama is declared. First, the nerves are to be purified. Then comes the power to practice pranayama, stopping the right nostril with the thumb, through the left nostril, fill in air according to capacity, then without any interval, throw the air out through the right nostril, closing the left one. So this is called anulom vilom. And if you can just, you can try it, you can see some instant relief. Again, inhaling through the right nostril, eject through the left according to capacity. Practicing this 3 or 5 times at 4 hours of the day, before dawn, during midday, in the evening, and at midnight, in 15 days or a month, purity of the nerves is attained. Then begins pranayama. So, I think that Swamiji is talking from the perspective of an adhikari, which means maybe for Swamiji that purity was attained in 15 days. For us, maybe it might not be so soon, but I think it's a good practice. We can all practice it, that when we're feeling stressed, keeping good posture, and learning to connect with the breath. As we talked about a couple of classes ago, in some practices of Vipassana Buddhism, for example, Thich Nhat Hanh, who had written The Miracle of Mindfulness, he mentions the main practice is to simply be aware of one's breath. That's the main practice. And from breath, he says you can connect breath to thought, to mind. Swamiji says the same thing. If you're feeling stressed, if you're thinking bad thoughts, the mind is more subtle. Don't try to grasp the mind. No, first you have to go with the gross, and from the gross you go to the subtle. So same thing, if they say, even modern science says, if you're feeling stressed, first go for a run. Do not attempt to sit for meditation at that time. That will make the mind all the more agitated. Go for the grossest first. Go for a run. Get the good chemicals, the dopamine kicking in. And then also at that time, with the posture straight, connecting with one's breath. Now, one other point I wanted to add. Remember in chapter 1, one of the key elements of Sankhya and yoga philosophy, there's not much difference between the physical body and the mind, the antakarana, which includes the buddhi, the intellect, the manas, the mind, and the ahamkara, the egoity. What's the difference? One is gross and one is subtle. But it's all made of what? What are the 3 elements it's made of? Who can say? The 3 gunas. It's all made of the same substance. In fact, if you look at medical science now, everybody's talking about this conception, the link between the mind and body. They say if the person is stressed, that becomes toxic for the body. And if the person's physical health is not good, that becomes toxic for the mind. But Sankhya talked about this thousands and thousands of years ago. Let's continue. Swamiji continues, practice is absolutely necessary. You may sit down and listen to me by the hour every day, but if you do not practice, you will not get one step further. It all depends on practice. We never understand things until we experience them. We will have to see and feel them for ourselves. So, what does practice do? It moves things from the cognitive to the affectative, the feeling, and the doing. Otherwise, something just remains in the cognitive, say Advaita Vedanta, everything is Brahman. Well, that sounds wonderful, so what's the big deal? Only when we try to practice something, we discover the obstructions. So practice is actually something that becomes revelatory. It lets us know the gap between ourselves and the ideal, between the real and the ideal. Otherwise, I can study so many books about climbing Mount Everest. I could spend my whole life studying about how to climb Mount Everest, what route to take. But until I actually start to take one step to climb Mount Everest, we won't understand the difficulties, the altitude sickness, so many things. Same thing with spiritual life, and Swamiji is talking about that here. Simply listening to explanations and theories will not do. So there's that from the Upanishads, Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha, na medhaya na bahuna shutena. So this Atman cannot be realized by giving lectures or just listening to lectures. So what happens when we begin practice? Then we understand what the obstructions are through first-hand experience. Swamiji continues, there are several obstructions to practice. The first obstruction is an unhealthy body. If the body is not in a fit state, the practice will be obstructed. Therefore, we have to keep the body in good health. We have to take care of what we eat and drink and what we do. So this is interesting. Taking care of the body. So especially in West Bengal, I see our monks were not so bad. We have our dinner at 9 o'clock, which is really late after all. Ayurveda says we should have our dinner by 6 p.m. Why? It's very scientific. After 6 p.m., just as the body begins to slow down, the metabolism level which digests, the digestive power also slows down. So I thought our monks were bad. We have our food at 9 o'clock, but some of my relatives staying there, they don't eat till like 11 o'clock at night. And that's common for West Bengal because people wake up late and then they eat late. Everything is kind of late. They go to sleep late. But then what happens? One thing I see here is then that buddhi develops. Why is it developing? We're taking rashagolas at night. It's not getting digested. Especially taking sweets at night. What's more deadly than that? It's not getting digested, so it's just staying there. And the next day it's coming forward. What's the relationship between that and asana? You know what, I wish when I could go back that sadhu who said, I wish I had a belly. Now I wish I have a reply to that. Modern science talks about this. In order to keep straight posture, you need strong core muscles. Core muscles means what? Especially the stomach muscles. The stomach muscles have to be strong. In addition to stomach muscles, the glute muscles, they don't take much time, but they have to be strengthened to keep the spine straight. The middle back, mid-back, those have to be strengthened. So this is what the latest science says. So I sometimes feel that rather than looking at what Swamiji says, we should look at how he arrived at his conclusions. You can see, and I think I showed that today, in spite of his intuitive experiential knowledge, he always referred to the latest scientific findings at the time. So I feel that if Swamiji were alive today, he would do the same thing. He would talk about what the latest science, he would talk about the laws of neuroplasticity, and he would go into it in much more depth than we go into it. So therefore, we have to keep the body in good health. We have to take care of what we eat and drink and what we do. So this is all linked together. Diet, exercise. He continues, always use a mental effort, what is usually called Christian science, to keep the body strong. That is all. Nothing further of the body. In the first class, we talked about what Christian science was. It's praying to, they believe in Christ, they believe that the body itself can be cured. Any illness can be cured, and if there's any illness in the body, it's because of improper prayer. So you have to pray properly, and you have to think positive thoughts. Swamiji continues, that is all, nothing further of the body. So he touches upon it. He emphasizes it. He's not dismissing it. So we have to give it its proper due. Swamiji continues, we must not forget that health is only a means to an end. But at the same time, I would say that if the health is not proper, where does our mind go? It always goes to the body. I think there's an Upanishad, Nayamatma balahinena labhyaha. So the Atman cannot be realized by the weakened body. The second obstruction is doubt. We always feel doubtful about things we do not see. Man cannot live upon words, however he may try. This is also a big thing, that we listen to so many lectures, especially say Advaita Vedanta, and we think we've had that breakthrough, but unless it becomes something that moves from the cognitive, if not experiential, at least if it moves to the heart level, dryness will come sooner or later. So how long can anybody live just upon words? So Swamiji continues, so doubt comes to us as to whether there is any truth in these things or not. Even the best of us will doubt sometimes. We see that with the direct disciples. They would sometimes come to Thakur, Ramakrishna, Ektu diye dao, give us some spiritual experience. So then Thakur would pray the Divine Mother, Mao ke ektu diye dao. Otherwise they might leave. They might leave if they don't get some type of experience. So, unfortunately, we don't have Ramakrishna to go to immediately like that right now. So with practice, Swamiji continues, within a few days, a little glimpse will come, enough to give one encouragement and hope. As a certain commentator on yoga philosophy says, when one proof is obtained, however little that may be, it will give us faith in the whole teaching of yoga. And let me push back on this a little bit, or let's add a little bit of nuance. What he's talking about, these type of experiences, are not so easy for all of us. In fact, they're quite rare. He's probably speaking, he talks about it so glibly, you can have this experience in a couple of days. These are what you call uttamadhikaris. They're the most competent of aspirants. In contrast to that, I'll give an example of one brahmachari. During the time of Mahapurush, Swami Shivananda, he was not a brahmachari, he was a young monk. And he had been practicing spiritual discipline for a long time. One day he came to Swami Shivananda and said, Maharaj, I don't want to stay here any longer. I'm not getting anything. Then what did Mahapurush Maharaj say? Okay, then go to your home. Then what did he say? No, I can't. I know I cannot go. Why can you not go? So you've gotten something. So I feel that a lot of it we have to do is, we've had things. It may not be a full-on experience, but we've cultivated vrittis, and we have to give importance to those things. Thakur ki bolen, what did Ramakrishna say? Upon a one you can build. So if we're always saying, I've not attained anything, that won't do. We have attained things. We have all attained something. It may not be the highest, but we can always do what Swami Swamiji used to say, if you want to see how much you've attained, don't look at the ideal. Don't look at the end state of samadhi. Compare yourself now to what you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Compare your mind, compare your everything, your nervous system, your spiritual system. So I think with that we'll close today, and we have a couple of minutes left, so we can take, if anyone has questions, first in audience or online, you can ask the questions or discussion. You can take the microphone, and you can please say your name as well.
Pranam Maharaj. I'm Shoma Pal Chaudhary. I would like to ask you a question. Like you first...
In the microphone.
Vivekananda addressed to the scientists, Puritans, evangelicals, psychologists and disenchanted types. What do you mean by the disenchanted types?
Oh, okay. So the question was, Swamiji, this was from the first talk. We were trying to contextualize Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga because he was speaking to a Western audience. And who was the audience he was speaking to? So it included scientists, leading scientists at the time, professors at Harvard, people like Nikola Tesla. You said disenchanted.
Disenchanted.
Disenchanted were what you would say agnostics. They were brought up, say Christians especially. If you look at Swami Vivekananda's main disciples in the West at that time, they were almost all white Protestant Christians. They became his foremost disciples in America. So they were taught a dogmatic religion of Christianity, not love of Christ, but it's called Bible Belt teaching, so that you have to believe this, you have to believe that. In academic terms, we call that didactic, top down, from the bully pulpit. So because of that, like Swamiji says, can a human being live upon words alone? What kind of a human being are they? So these were sincere spiritual seekers, so that sometimes they lost faith. It's just words are not enough. They need some type of spiritual experience. So that's what Swamiji probably meant by the word disenchanted. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any questions online. So. Okay. So then we'll just close. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. So just one thing in conclusion, I just wanted to add that the main sum up from today's talk is that let's pay the idea of āsana as we looked at it from Swami Vivekananda's teachings, and more importantly, from the actual sitting and standing posture of Swami Vivekananda, Holy Mother, Sri Ramakrishna, that let's also try to keep the posture straight, aligned, and there are good books that talk about it. You can go online, how to develop the core muscles. It doesn't matter what the age is, you can develop these muscles. Okay, the stomach muscles especially. It calls core muscles to develop. By doing simple exercises that will help us to keep the spine aligned with the neck and the head, and the results of that may be phenomenal, as what we learned today, that leads to higher thinking, better thinking, more empathy, more spiritual practice. These are what we say fundamentals that we ignore. You know, when I first joined, I didn't know any better. Sometimes I would be sitting in Bellarmont and I would see monks sitting and they would be like slouched, almost sleeping. And I thought, wow, they're in Nidra Samadhi, in the Samadhi of sleep. So I didn't know. But then when I look back on it, when I think of some of the great monks I've been fortunate to meet, Swami Ranganathanandaji, how many of you have seen him? Even at the age of 97, he was as straight as a pole. Swami Swahananji, he was always very straight. I never met him, but Swami Vireshwaranandaji, if you see his posture. In fact, if you look at the picture of there's a painting of the direct disciples, all sitting If you look at their posture, they're all sitting straight. Holy Mother, almost till the end of her life, she had straight posture. Thakur, even in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there was another picture which I did not show you. It was taken at Radha Bajar Studios. He's just, it is a studio, he's standing, his posture is very, very straight. The only time that he was a little bit bent, there's a famous picture of him sitting where he's bent, but there's an explanation for that. And the explanation for that is that they were trying to take a picture of him, and it was in front of the Radha Krishna temple at Dakshineshwar. Swamiji and Bhavanath Chattopadhyay, they were arranging the picture. So Thakur was slightly bent this way. He was in a state of samadhi. Swamiji tried to move him a little bit. His body literally levitated off the ground. So there was no body consciousness at that time. So that's why it was a little bit bent. So let's try to keep these ideals in mind, and let's try to make this maybe a practice for the next few weeks, and let's see how it goes. Thank you.